All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to work on inequality word problems. So we're going to put together all that we've learned about inequalities and apply them to a word problem. It's a perfect time for us to use SMP number 1, where we're going to make sense of our problems, and then we're going to persevere in solving them. Because many of these are multi-step, so you're going to need to, put in that effort. We're going to work, just like Rihanna. All right. To start, our essential question is, how do I annotate a word problem? It's important that when we're marking our text or when we're looking at the screen, when we're taking our state exam, that we're really paying attention to each word and what the meaning can be or what. So it will help us identify what operation we're to perform or what we should be thinking of in terms of our next step. All right, so our first one is to select all values that satisfy the inequality P is less than or equal to 5 3/4. So notice here we're going to select all the inequalities. And when it says satisfy, that's just a fancy way to say we want to make a true statement. So each time we plug in a different value for P, we want it to truly be telling us a smaller number than the one it is comparing it to, or one that's equal to it. All right, so now that we have that marked off, we're gonna substitute. We're gonna use substitution to help us solve this. So we have P, our numbers. Here are our numbers. We're gonna compare them to 5 3/4. All right, to start, we have 5 75/100. That's said to be, is it less than or equal to 5 3/4? Now, when we're thinking of 5 3/4, if you translate that to money, that'd be $5.75, which at this point, I think that would be $5.75. So 5 75/100. And as you can see, those numbers are exactly the same. So this part where it says can be equal to makes this a true statement. So we would mark A. Next, when we're looking at B, we have a value of P is less than -12. So we're going to take out P and put -12. We're looking at, is -12 less than or equal to 5 3/4? Now, I know you remember from our work with number lines, if zero's in the middle, the farther you go to the right, the larger the number. The farther you go to the left, the smaller the number. We have our positive numbers on the right and our negative numbers on the left. So because our positive 5 would be over here and our negative number would be over here on the left, it is a smaller value. And because we're looking for smaller values, and that means B needs to be marked, because -12 is indeed smaller than 5 3/4. As well as D, -3 is smaller than 5 3/4, because it's a negative number, and negative numbers are smaller than positive numbers. They're farther to the left. And then finally, we look at 6. So if we use this same concept, 6, we're saying 6 is less than or equal to 5 3/4. Well, having $6 is actually more than having 5 3/4 of a dollar. So this is not a true statement, therefore we would not be marking C. On to our next problem. We have, consider the inequality x is greater than -3. If you have a previous version, there was a typo, so make sure you change it to x is greater than -3. We're going to determine whether each value for x makes this inequality true. So once again, we have true popping up here. Select yes if that's true and no for each value. So we're going to be given a series of values here in this table. We can see our job is to determine, so you're going to choose. And you're either selecting yes or you're selecting no, based on whether or not they make true statements. All right. So if we use our number line again to reference it, we have -3 here. 0 would be to its right because 0 is bigger than -3. And -6 would be over here to its left. So remember, the farther you go to the right, the larger the number. And the farther you go to the left, the smaller the number. So let's reference to where these are at. All right, positive 10 would be on the right of 0. It'd be to the right of 0, which means indeed 10 is greater than negative 3. So we would check yes. Now comparing negative 1, is that greater than negative 3? Well, negative 1 would be over here close to 0, which means it's to the right of negative 3. So yes, that is better. Correction, that is larger. So that would be a yes. It makes a true statement. Negative 10 now. We're looking at negative 10. Is that greater than negative 3? Now negative 3 is here. Negative 10, so owing $10 or losing 10 points would be over here, and that's bad. That is actually smaller because it's farther to the left. So this is not a true statement. We would mark no. 2 and 5/10 is also positive, which means it's on the right of 0, which means it's to the right of negative 3, which would be yes. So 2 and 5/10 is indeed greater than 3. And our final one, negative 7, we're comparing that to negative 3. So negative 7 would be just over here to the left of negative 6. And because it's to the left of negative 3, again, owing $7 or losing 7 points, not good, or negative 7 degrees, super cold, that would actually be smaller, not larger. So this is not true. So we would mark no, because it would not make a true statement. And our last problem, select the number line that represents all solutions of x is greater than negative 2/4. So again, we are selecting, and it needs to represent all the solutions. When we're looking at a number line, remember when we're graphing inequalities, we have either an open or closed circle. This here symbol means we have an open circle. So we're looking at these and we cannot eliminate any because they're all open circle. Perfect. Next, we look at our number that we're comparing our variable to, x, is negative 2/4. So we're looking for, is this a negative number? So do we have an open circle at a negative number? And we can now mark off A and we can mark off B because those are at positive 2/4 and we needed a negative value. And then it says x needs to be less than. So we have less than. And we know less than means it needs to be smaller. So we're expecting it to go to the left. That being the arrow needs to be smaller because smaller numbers go to the left. Which means C is not right because that's going to the right, indicating positive. Well, we're going to eventually get to positive numbers, and we're looking for smaller numbers than that, so it needs to go to the left. So answer would be D. All right, and that is how we can start breaking down word problems.